Good evening, weary soul. Welcome to this sanctuary of release. If you've come this far, you may intimately know the weight of the world. Not the weight that's out there, but the weight we carry within. The weight of worries, regrets, expectations, hurts. At night, when there are no more distractions, these burdens can seem unbearable, turning our bed into a mental battlefield instead of a haven of peace. We tell ourselves to relax, but we don't know how. We order ourselves to let go, but our mental hands seem glued to our problems. Buddhist wisdom offers us a profound and comforting lesson. Letting go is not a command we give ourselves, but a skill we cultivate with kindness. It's not an act of surrender, but an act of immense wisdom and courage. It is the recognition that much of our suffering does not come from the problems themselves, but from our attachment to them. And the good news is that we can learn to release this attachment. On this journey, we will explore together the art of letting go. Each of the lessons that follow is a key, designed to unlock one of the locks that keeps your burdens chained to you. There will be no effort, there will be no struggle, only a gentle invitation to relax your grip, breath by breath. This audio was created to be absorbed, not analyzed. Allow the words, the stories, and the silence to wash over your mind, gently dissolving the knots of tension, even as you fall asleep. Trust that a deeper part of you knows exactly how to let go. Breathe deeply now, and as you exhale, release just 1% of your weight, a small permission to relax. Before we begin our first lesson, if you feel called to solidify your intention, leave a comment with the words, "I open myself to lightness," and join us on this journey of liberation. Your work for today is done. Now it's time to let go. It's time to rest. It's time to find peace. Night. Lesson 1. The lesson of burdens yet to come. The first and heaviest burden we carry to bed is the burden of the future. The mind transforms into a scenario machine, most of them catastrophic. What if I can't pay the bills? What if the meeting goes badly? What if I get sick? We lie down, but our consciousness is living in tomorrow, next week, next year, fighting battles that haven't begun and suffering from disasters that may never happen. This constant projection into the future, this habit of living in a state of worry, is the most common thief of sleep and peace. The wisdom to release this burden comes from understanding its illusory nature. Worry is an act of suffering in the present for something that exists only in our imagination. We are paying interest on a debt that may never be collected. Imagine a traveler about to embark on a long mountain trek. Before leaving, an old villager warns him, "Be careful, my friend. At the top of this mountain, there is a very heavy stone, and tradition says that every traveler must carry it for a few meters." The traveler thanks him for the warning and sets off. From the first step, he can't stop thinking about the stone. He imagines its weight, its rough texture. He feels his back already aching, his knees weakening. Every step of the climb, which should be beautiful, becomes torture as he lives it under the shadow of that future burden. Exhausted, not from the walk, but from his own worry, he finally reaches the top. There, he sees the stone. It is truly large. With a heavy heart, he approaches, ready for his suffering. The guardian of the mountaintop then approaches and says, "Tradition is correct. Now please, touch the stone." The traveler, confused, reaches out and touches the stone. "Done," says the guardian. "You have fulfilled the tradition. You may go on your way in peace." The traveler realizes, shocked, that he suffered for miles under the weight of a burden he never had to carry. Our worries are these stones. We carry their crushing weight in our minds for hours, days, weeks, when, in reality, most of them never materialize. And even when they do materialize, our ability to deal with them in the present moment is far greater than our anxious mind leads us to believe. Letting go of worry is the act of releasing these imaginary stones. The practice to be absorbed tonight is to recognize the unreality of the burden. Bring to mind a future worry that is weighing on you. Feel it. Now gently label it in your mind. This is the stone of tomorrow's meeting, or this is the stone of the doctor's appointment. By naming it, you already create space. Now, with a long, gentle exhale, visualize yourself simply releasing this imaginary stone. Let it fall by the wayside. Feel the immediate relief in your mind and body. If the mind tries to pick it up again, gently release it again. I do not need to carry the weight of tomorrow today. I release the imaginary stones of worry. I choose to rest in the reality of this moment, which is free and at peace. Night Lesson 2. The lesson of the boat that has already reached port. If the future haunts us with worries, the past chains us with the weight of rumination. Lying in the quiet of the night, the mind often becomes a cinema, incessantly replaying the films of our mistakes, our regrets, and the hurts we have suffered. I shouldn't have said that. Why did he do that to me? If only I had done differently. We get stuck in a loop, reliving the pain, shame, or anger, as if we could, through repetition, somehow change what has already happened. This habit of chewing over the past is like trying to row a boat against a strong current. It's an exhausting effort that gets us nowhere, only keeps us trapped, and prevents us from resting in the safe harbor of the present. The lesson to release this burden is that of radical acceptance of the immutable nature of the past. The past, by definition, is over. It now exists only as a thought in our mind. Fighting against it, wishing it were different, is a battle against reality itself, a battle we are destined to lose. Letting go of the past does not mean forgetting it, nor approving what happened. It simply means stopping fighting a war that is already over. It is the wise act of taking your hands off the helm of time and allowing our boat to finally rest. Imagine that your life is a long boat trip down a river. You have already sailed through many landscapes, some beautiful, others dangerous. You have passed through stretches of violent rapids, the difficult moments, and tranquil backwaters, the happy moments. Now tonight, your boat has reached a calm and safe harbor. The engine is off, the sails are furled, but instead of resting and enjoying the calm of the harbor, you continue to look back to a dangerous part of the river that you have already passed. You become obsessed with the rock you almost hit, with the storm that scared you. You spend all your energy in the harbor reliving the dangers of the journey. The wisdom is to recognize the journey through that stretch is over. I am safe now. I am in port. As you rest in your bed, recognize that you are in this harbor. The day, with all its challenges and successes, is over. The journey through it is complete. The practice to be absorbed is to release the moorings of the past. Bring to mind a past event that your mind has revisited, a regret or a grievance. See it as a scene that happened far back, upstream. Thank that scene for the lesson it taught you, even if the lesson was painful. Now, with a deep exhale, visualize yourself cutting the rope that binds you to that scene. Watch it float away in the current of time, becoming smaller and smaller until it disappears from view. Feel the freedom that comes with this act. Your boat is free. It is no longer being pulled back by the current of the past. It can now rest in silence and peace in the calm waters of the present moment. If the memory tries to return, repeat the process with the same gentleness. Cut the rope and return to the peace of the harbor. The past is a river that has already passed. I can no longer navigate its waters. I release the ropes of rumination and allow my boat to rest in the safe harbor of now. Night Lesson 3. The lesson of ice that becomes a river. Worries and regrets do not only live in our minds as abstract thoughts, they live in our bodies. The burden of the future manifests as a knot in the stomach. The weight of the past lodges as chronic tension in our shoulders and neck. Fear is expressed in a clenched jaw, and sadness in a constricted chest. We become prisoners of an armor of muscle tension, a physical reflection of our mental habit of clinging to things. We try to let go of thoughts, but if we don't teach our body to let go as well, the liberation will be incomplete. The mind cannot truly rest in a body that is at war. This teaching invites us to understand that the act of letting go is a profoundly physical process. The wisdom is in recognizing how our mental rigidity creates bodily rigidity. Thoughts of control and resistance freeze energy in our body, like water turning into ice. Ice is hard, inflexible, and fragile. A body that lives in this state of freezing is a body prone to pain and exhaustion. Healing and release happen when we learn to apply gentle and compassionate warmth to these frozen areas, allowing the ice to melt and return to its natural state, which is that of a flowing river. Imagine a river in winter, completely frozen. The water is trapped, immobile, silent. This is the image of a tense body, holding the pains of the mind. Now, imagine the arrival of spring. The sun, with its gentle and persistent warmth, begins to touch the surface of the ice. It does not use force. It does not try to break the ice violently. It simply offers its warmth, and slowly the ice begins to melt. First, small drops, then streams of water, until finally the entire river is free, flowing again with sound, with movement, and with life. Our conscious breath and our loving attention are like this spring sun for the frozen areas of our body. Let's practice melting the ice now. Bring your attention to an area of your body where you feel tension. It may be your shoulders, your jaw, your forehead. Feel the quality of this tension. Feel it like a block of ice, cold and hard. Don't fight against it. Just acknowledge its presence with kindness. Now, begin to direct your breath to that area. Imagine that your breath is warm, soft, and golden, like the rays of the spring sun. With each inhalation, feel this warmth accumulating around the block of ice. With each exhalation, visualize the ice melting a little under this warmth. Feel or imagine the edges of the ice softening, becoming water. Feel the rigidity turning into fluidity. Continue this process with patience. Inhale the warmth of acceptance. Exhale, melting the tension. Feel the sensation of relief, of release, as the energy that was trapped in the ice begins to flow again. Notice how, by releasing the tension in the body, the mind that was associated with that tension also begins to relax its grip. The river of your body and the river of your mind are beginning to flow in harmony again, towards the great ocean of sleep. My body holds the tensions of my mind. With the warmth of my breath and my attention, I melt the ice of contraction. I release the burden at the cellular level and allow the energy of life to flow freely through me, breathing into this lesson. Night lesson 4. The lesson of the knot that unties itself. One of the biggest burdens we carry is our need to control everything. We want to control the results of our work, the feelings of our loved ones, the flow of our own lives. When we face a problem, a knot in our path, our instinct is to attack with force. We think, analyze, worry, trying to force a solution. We pull the ends of the knot with all our mental strength, believing that the intensity of our effort is what will solve it. However, we often find that the more we pull, the tighter the knot becomes. The lesson of wisdom to release the burden of excessive control is counterintuitive. It teaches us that, in many situations, the solution is not in doing more, but in doing less. It is the art of relaxing the grip, of creating space, of allowing the solution to emerge, instead of trying to fabricate it. It is the recognition that the very tension we apply to the problem is, often, what keeps it stuck in its place. Imagine an experienced sailor facing an incredibly tight knot in a thick, rain-soaked rope that shrunk. A novice sailor would try to undo it with brute force. He'd pull the ends with frustration, using tools to pry it. The loops, likely only making the knot more impenetrable, perhaps even damaging the rope. The wise sailor, however, knows that force is futile. Instead, he takes the rope and submerges it in water again, allowing the fibers to relax. He doesn't pull the ends. Rather, he gently pushes the loops towards the knot's center, creating some slack. He observes the knot patiently, studying its pattern, unhurried. By releasing the tension around the knot and observing it clearly, he suddenly sees the way, and with a smooth, effortless movement, the knot unravels. Our problems are like this knot. Our worry and attempts to force a solution are the act of pulling the ends, tightening it further. Letting go, in this context, is the act of relaxing the tension around the problem. It's ceasing to obsess over it for a while. It's stepping back, breathing, and trusting that by creating a space of mental calm, the clarity and intuition needed to see the solution will emerge. As you rest, think of a knot in your life, a problem you've been trying to solve with effort and worry. Feel the mental tension you've applied to it. Now, with a long, gentle exhale, visualize yourself releasing the ends of the rope. Stop pulling. Instead, imagine you're blowing a breath of acceptance and patience onto that knot. Create space around it. Tell yourself, I don't need to solve this right now. For tonight, I release control. I trust that, in the space of calm, clarity will come. Feel the profound release that comes from no longer needing to struggle. By letting go of the problem, you open yourself to the solution. The tension in my mind tightens the knots of my life. I stop pulling, I relax my grip, and create space. By releasing the burden of control, I allow natural wisdom to untie the knots for me, allowing this lesson to settle. Night Lesson 5, the lesson of dismissing the inner judge. Of all the burdens we carry, perhaps the heaviest and most intimate is the burden of self-criticism. Within each of us often resides a harsh judge, a voice that narrates our lives with a constant stream of judgment. You're not good enough. You messed up again. Why did you do that? This voice, which we call the inner critic, can be relentless. We carry it with us to bed, and it transforms the silence of the night into a courtroom where we are perpetually the defendant, found guilty of not being perfect. This habit of self-judgment robs us of peace, destroys our self-confidence, and prevents us from resting in the acceptance of who we are. The lesson to release this burden is to fundamentally change our relationship with this voice. Wisdom teaches us that we cannot destroy the inner critic by force, for fighting it is just another form of self-criticism. Instead, we can learn to disarm it with awareness and compassion. First, by recognizing that this voice isn't truth, it's merely a habitual thought pattern, often learned in childhood as a distorted way of trying to keep us safe or motivate us. Second, we can learn to thank this voice for its clumsy attempt to protect us, and then, gently, dismiss it from its service. Imagine your inner critic is like an old guard who has worked for years at the gate of your castle. He's hypervigilant, distrustful, and shouts at everyone who approaches, including you, the king or queen of the castle. He believes that by being so harsh, he's keeping you safe. Fighting him or angrily dismissing him will only make him more defensive. The wise approach is to approach the guard with compassion. You might say to him, "I appreciate your dedication and loyalty over all these years. I know everything you've done was in an attempt to protect me, but your work is done now. The kingdom is at peace. You can rest. I'll take guard from now on, but with a new approach, one of kindness and trust. Tonight, let's practice retiring our inner judge. Become aware of the voice of self-criticism in your mind. Listen to its tone, its habitual words. Now, instead of believing it or fighting it, visualize it as this tired, hyper-vigilant guard. From a place of wisdom and compassion in your heart, address him. Silently thank him for his intention to protect you, however clumsy it may have been. And then, with gentle authority, tell him, your shift is over. You can take the night off, and the week, and the rest of your life. You can rest. I am safe. Visualize the judge, perhaps for the first time, relaxing his shoulders, releasing his weapon of judgment, and withdrawing from the courtroom of your mind. Observe the silence he leaves behind, a silence that isn't empty, but full of a quality of acceptance and peace. This is your natural state, when the burden of judgment is finally released. The voice of my critic is not my truth. It's merely an old habit. With compassion, I thank this voice and dismiss it from its service. By releasing the burden of self-judgment, I find the peace of simply being who I am. Carrying this lesson. Night Lesson 6. The lesson of the single flower in the world's garden. One of the heaviest and most pervasive burdens in our culture is that of comparison. We spend our days, consciously or unconsciously, measuring ourselves against others. We compare our careers, our bodies, our relationships, our possessions. Social media has become an endless stage for this theater of comparison, where each of us displays our best angle, creating an unattainable standard of perfection. At night, the mind continues this painful game. We lie down and feel the weight of not being as successful, as beautiful, as happy as the people we admire or envy. This habit of comparison is a thief that steals the joy from our own lives and keeps us in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. The lesson of wisdom that frees us from this burden is that of recognizing our own uniqueness. Comparison is only possible when we believe we are all in the same race, competing for the same prize. But the truth is that each of us is a unique expression of life, with a unique path, unique gifts, and unique challenges. Trying to be like someone else is a betrayal of our own nature and a recipe for suffering. True peace and true wisdom are found when we stop looking sideways and begin to cultivate our own garden. Imagine a vast garden. In it, There are roses, lilies, violets, sunflowers. Imagine that this garden would be a very sad place if all the flowers were trying to be roses. The violet, small and humble, would feel like a failure for not having the thorns and height of the rosebush. The sunflower would feel inadequate for not having the fragrance of the lily. By comparing themselves, all the flowers would suffer, and the garden would lose its beauty, which lies precisely in its diversity. Wisdom blossoms when the violet celebrates its deep purple color, when the sunflower celebrates its ability to follow the sun, and when the rose celebrates its intoxicating fragrance. Wisdom is each flower becoming the best version of itself. We are like these flowers. The habit of letting go of comparison is the act of reclaiming our own unique beauty. It's stopping trying to be a rose if our nature is to be a sunflower. It's an act of profound self-respect and love. As you rest, allow the beauty of your own uniqueness to be absorbed. The practice is one of self-appreciation. Let go for a moment of all the people you compare yourself to. Bring your attention inward and find a quality that is uniquely yours. It doesn't need to be something grand. Perhaps it's your laugh. Perhaps it's the way you care for your plants. Perhaps it's your quiet resilience. Perhaps it's your passion for a hobby that no one else understands. Find that little jewel of your authenticity. Hold it in your mind. Appreciate it. Feel how good it is, how true it is. This is your fragrance, your color. Don't compare it to any other. Just celebrate it. Release the burden of having to be like others, and rest in the peace of being perfectly you. I am a unique flower in the vast garden of life. I stop comparing myself and celebrate my own beauty and my own path. By releasing the burden of comparison, I find the freedom and joy of blossoming as myself. Resting in this lesson. Night lesson. 7. The lesson of the script that was never written. We walk through life carrying a heavy book of rules and scripts in our minds. It's the book of expectations. We have a detailed script of how we should be. Always patient, always productive, always happy. We have a script for other people. Our partners should understand us. Our friends should always be available. Strangers should be polite. And we have a script for life itself. It should be fair, easy, and follow our plans. The problem is that life and other people rarely follow our scripts. And each time reality deviates from our manual of expectations, we suffer. We feel frustration, disappointment, resentment. This teaching reveals that the burden of expectations is one of the main sources of our unhappiness. An expectation, as they say, is a premeditated resentment. It's a demand we make on reality for it to bend to our will. And since reality is vast and uncontrollable, this is a battle we are destined to lose. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean becoming passive or no longer having desires and values. It means releasing our rigid attachment to outcomes. It means exchanging the script for a map and a compass. Imagine you're on a journey down an unknown river. The rigid script would be a train track you try to impose on the landscape. You'd get frustrated with every bend in the river that doesn't align with your tracks. It would be a journey of constant struggle and disappointment. A map and compass, on the other hand, are different. The compass is your values, your intention. For example, I want to travel towards the ocean of peace. The map is your knowledge, your wisdom, which helps you navigate. With a map and compass, you don't fight the river. You flow with it. You use your wisdom to navigate the bends and obstacles, always reorienting yourself with your compass, but open and flexible to the actual journey as it unfolds. Letting go of expectations is the act of burning the scripts and learning. To navigate with a map and compass, it's an act that frees us from the stress of perfection and opens us to the beauty and lessons of reality as it is. The practice to be absorbed tonight is that of releasing a script. Think of an expectation that's causing you stress. It could be an expectation about yourself, about another person, or about how tomorrow should be. Visualize this expectation as a theatrical script, with all the lines and actions rigidly defined. Feel the weight and fragility of this object. Now, with an exhale, imagine this paper script simply dissolving in your hands, transforming into golden dust that scatters in the wind. The stage is now empty. There are no more lines to follow. There's only the open space of the present moment. Feel the freedom and relief that comes with this. You no longer need to force yourself or others to follow a role. You can simply show up, breathe, and respond to life with the wisdom and spontaneity of your heart. I release the rigid script of my expectations. With the compass of my intention and the map of my wisdom, I navigate the river of life with flexibility and peace. By releasing the burden of how things should be, I open myself to the beauty of how they are. Night Lesson 8. The Lesson of the Mountain Unmoved by the Wind. One of the heaviest and most invisible burdens we carry is the weight of other people's opinions. We shape our actions, edit our words, and hide our true selves, all for fear of what others will think. Lying in bed, the mind becomes a stage for social anxiety, replaying conversations, imagining judgments, and worrying about our image. This dependence on external validation is like building our house on sand. The slightest wave of criticism or shift in the tide of approval can crumble our inner peace. Living like this is exhausting, for we hand over the keys to our happiness to everyone else. The habit of wisdom that frees us from this burden is that of cultivating an inner stability that doesn't depend on external factors. It's the practice of shifting our center of gravity from outside to inside. This isn't about becoming arrogant, insensitive, or ignoring helpful advice. It's about finding a source of self-esteem and worth that is intrinsic, based on our own integrity and intentions, and not on the applause or criticism of the world. It's the wisdom of knowing who we are, regardless of what others say we are. Imagine a large, majestic mountain. It stands there, solid and dignified, for millennia. The weather around it changes constantly. There are days of warm sunshine when the gentle breeze caresses it. There are days of violent storms when howling winds lash it. The wind can be that of criticism or praise. To the mountain, both are merely weather, transient phenomena. The wind doesn't scratch the rock, doesn't shake its foundations. The mountain doesn't become arrogant with the breeze, nor depressed with the storm. It simply remains in its own massive, silent presence, allowing the wind to pass. A wise mind cultivates this mountain-like quality. As you rest, you can learn to embody this stability. The practice to absorb is to become the mountain. Feel the weight of your body on the bed as the mountain's base, firmly connected to the earth. Feel your spine as the peak that rises with silent dignity. Now, become aware of your mind, and imagine the opinions, thoughts, and words of others as the wind. Remember a compliment you received. See it as a warm, pleasant breeze. Feel it, appreciate it, and then let it pass. It doesn't define you. Now remember a criticism that hurt you. See it as a cold, cutting wind. Feel it, acknowledge its sharpness, and then likewise, let it pass. It also doesn't define you. You are not the weather. You are the mountain. With each breath, feel yourself more grounded, more solid, more unshakable. The habit to be learned is this: to feel the wind, but remain the mountain. I am not the wind of others' opinions. I am the mountain. I anchor my worth in my own presence and integrity. By releasing the need for approval, I find an unshakable peace and freedom. Breathing in this lesson. Night Lesson 9. The lesson of emptying the full cup. One of the most subtle burdens we carry is the weight of our own knowledge. We cling to our opinions, our beliefs, our certainties. We believe we know how the world works, how people should be, and how our own lives should unfold. This full mind, this expert mind, while seeming a strength, is often a prison. It makes us rigid, defensive, and closed to the beauty and wisdom of the new. The effort to constantly defend what we already know is tiring and prevents us from learning what we most need. The burden of certainty is a great obstacle to peace. The wise habit that frees us from this burden is cultivating the beginner's mind. It's the practice of deliberately emptying our cup of old certainties so we can receive the freshness of the present moment. The beginner's mind is not an empty or ignorant mind. It's an open, curious, and humble mind. It's the mind that is willing to see everything as if for the first time, free from the heavy filter of our past experiences. Letting go of the burden of knowing is not losing our intelligence. It's freeing it from its rigidity and allowing it to dance with life as it is. The classic Zen story tells of a learned university professor who visited an old master to learn about Zen. The professor, eager to show his knowledge, spoke for hours about his theories and everything he had read. The master listened patiently and then invited him for tea. He began pouring tea into the professor's cup. The cup filled, but the master continued pouring, and the tea began to overflow. The professor, alarmed, exclaimed, "Stop! The cup is full! No more will fit!" The master looked at him serenely and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and certainties. How can I show you something new unless you first empty your cup? Sleep itself is an invitation to empty the cup. We cannot fall asleep while the mind is full, trying to analyze the day that passed and plan the day to come. Deep rest requires that we release the burden of who we think we are and what we think we know. The practice to absorb tonight is to feel the liberation of emptying the cup. Visualize your mind as a beautiful porcelain cup. See it filled to the brim with the worries, plans, opinions, and certainties of your day. Feel the weight of that cup. Recognize the tension of trying not to spill anything. Now, with a long, gentle exhale, visualize yourself tilting the cup gently and allowing all its contents to spill onto the fertile earth. It's not a loss, it's an offering. See the old ideas being absorbed by the earth, becoming compost. Now, contemplate your cup. It's empty, clean, light. Feel the peace and freedom that come with this space. An empty mind is ready for anything. A full mind is ready only for what it already knows. I release the burden of having to know everything. With humility, I empty my cup of old certainties. In the spacious peace of the beginner's mind, I open myself to wisdom and to rest, allowing this lesson to settle. Night Lesson 10. The lesson of dissolving into the river of breath of all the burdens the mind carries. The most fundamental is the very sense of being a fixed and separate self. This identity, the I that worries, the I that regrets, the I that needs defending, is the main character in all our dramas of suffering. We cling to this story of me as if it were our most precious possession, but it is the root of our loneliness and anxiety. The habit of constantly identifying with this solid entity is the most tiring work there is. The deepest liberation, therefore, is the habit of periodically releasing this burden. The wisdom of non-self, or anatta, teaches us that this solid identity is an illusion, a construction of the mind. When we look closely at our experience, we don't find a thing, but a process. The body is not a statue, but a flow of sensations. The mind is not an entity, but a flow of thoughts. The I is a label we apply to this ever-changing flow. The night, and especially the breath, are our greatest teachers of this liberating truth. The breath flows through us without an owner. It is a natural and impersonal process. By merging with it, we can experience the peace of not being someone for a while. Imagine that your sense of self is like an ice doll floating in a river. While frozen, it has a defined shape, rigid edges. It bumps against the banks, collides with other things. It feels separate from the water surrounding it. This is the experience of our ego. The river is your breath, always flowing. The habit to be cultivated is to allow the gentle warmth of your attention to melt this ice doll. It's not an annihilation, but a merging. It's the return of the separate form to its fluid, boundless source. As you rest, allow the breath to be your guide to this dissolution. The practice to absorb is to become the flow itself. Begin by feeling your body lying down, with its edges and its weight. Now bring your full attention to the sensations of your breath. Feel the flow of air coming in and the flow of air going out. Don't control it, just feel it. Now begin to imagine that with each exhale, the feeling of solidity in your body dissolves a little into this flow. It's as if a small part of the ice doll melts and becomes part of the river. With the next exhale, feel the edges of your feet and hands softening, becoming more porous. With the following exhale, feel your legs and arms losing their rigidity, becoming part of the flow. Continue this process, moving up your body. Exhale and release the solidity of your torso. Exhale and release the tension of your neck and head. Continue until the feeling of being a separate body, a rigid I, has completely dissolved into the gentle, continuous rhythm of the breath. There is no longer an I that breathes. There is only the breathing, a flow of energy, peaceful, impersonal, and free. Rest in this experience of fluidity. The burden of being a solid I dissolves into the flow of life. Tonight, I allow myself to melt. I merge with the river of my breath and find the peace of being no one, nowhere, just flowing, carrying this lesson. Night lesson 11. The lesson of the burning ember in the hand. We now begin the journey to release the burdens of the heart, and one of the heaviest, one that can keep us awake night after night, poisoning our peace, is the burden of resentment. When someone hurts us, whether with words or actions, the initial wound is painful, but what keeps us suffering, sometimes for years, is not the wound itself, but our habit of clinging to the hurt, the anger, and the desire for justice or revenge. We become prisoners of our own past, chained to the person who hurt us, forced to relive the pain repeatedly in our minds. The lesson of wisdom that teaches us to release this burden is one of the most powerful and liberating in Buddhism. The teaching compares the act of harboring resentment to picking up a burning ember in your hand, intending to throw it at another person. While we wait for the opportunity, while we fuel our anger and plan our attack, whose hand is burning? Who is being burned, moment by moment? The answer is clear. It is us. The other person may be living their life, completely unaware of our pain, while we consume ourselves in our own fire. Forgiveness, in this context, is not about the other person. It's not a gift we give to the person who hurt us. It doesn't mean we have to forget what happened, nor that we have to say their action was right. Forgiveness is the act of radical self-compassion. It's the wise act of recognizing that the ember in our hand is destroying us, and, for our own good, for the love of our own peace, deciding to open our hand and let it go. It's an act of personal liberation. It's the decision to stop drinking the poison we ourselves prepared. The habit of releasing the ember of resentment is a practice of healing. The energy that was spent keeping the fire of anger burning becomes available to heal our own wounds and to live in the present. We cut the energetic current that bound us to the past and to pain. We regain our power and our peace. As you relax deeply, allow this healing lesson to be absorbed by your heart. The practice is to feel and release the ember. Bring to mind carefully a hurt or resentment you have been carrying. It doesn't have to be the biggest, just one that is present. Allow yourself to feel, just for a moment, the energy of that emotion in your body. Feel the heat, the contraction, the pain. Recognize without judgment, this is the burning ember in my hand. Feel how it hurts you. Now, make a conscious decision from your deepest desire to be free and to find peace. Visualize your hand, clenched into a fist around this ember, and with a slow and deliberate exhale, see your hand opening, finger by finger, and simply let go. Let the ember fall. Watch it roll away and extinguish itself in the vastness of space, transforming into harmless ashes. Feel the immediate relief in your hand, in your heart. Feel the coolness that takes the place of the burn. I recognize that resentment burns only me. For the love of my own peace, I choose to open my hand. I release the burning ember of the past and allow my heart to heal and rest. Resting in this lesson. Night lesson 12. The lesson of the rain that's allowed to fall. Another heavy burden we carry in our hearts is our unprocessed sadness. In a culture that often values constant strength and positivity, we learn early on to repress our pain. We see sadness as a sign of weakness, an emotion to be overcome as quickly as possible. When sadness knocks on our door, we ignore it, distract ourselves from it, or try to force it away. We build dams of denial and occupation to contain the river of our grief. But the contained water doesn't disappear. It becomes stagnant, heavy, and the constant pressure of this inner dam consumes our vital energy, manifesting as latent depression or inexplicable anxiety. This teaching offers us a lesson of hydric wisdom. Sadness is not the problem. Our resistance to it is the problem. Sadness is not an enemy to be defeated, but a natural and healing part of our emotional ecosystem. Like rain. Rain may seem melancholic, it may force us to cancel our plans, but it is absolutely essential to cleanse the air, to nourish the earth, and to allow new seeds to germinate. Similarly, sadness has a function. It softens us, connects us with our humanity and that of others, and washes the wounds of our heart, creating space for joy to eventually return. Letting go of sadness, therefore, doesn't mean pushing it away. It means paradoxically, letting go of our resistance to it. It's the act of stopping fighting the rain and instead finding a safe shelter, opening the window, and letting it fall. It's the courage to create a compassionate space within ourselves so that sadness can be felt, honored, and can follow its natural course, which is to flow through us and go away, leaving the inner landscape clean and renewed. As you lie down in safety, the practice to absorb is to give permission. If there is any trace of sadness in your heart, recent or old, resist the urge to get rid of it. Instead, visualize that you are creating a safe and welcoming space around that feeling. Place a hand over your heart as a gesture of friendship and protection, and then offer that sadness, as if it were a crying child, your permission and your compassionate presence. Say to it silently, "I see you, sadness. You have permission to be here. I will not abandon you. I will stay with you until you feel safe." There's no need to drown in the story of sadness. Just feel its energy in your body. Breathe with it. Offer it the warmth of your presence, without judgment. Notice how, by stopping fighting, by giving the rain permission to fall, the tension in your body begins to dissolve. You are no longer fighting. You are allowing. And in permission, there is immense peace. I don't need to be afraid of my own sadness. It is like rain, which comes to cleanse and nourish. I release my resistance and create a safe space for my feelings to flow. In acceptance, I find healing. Night Lesson 13. The Lesson of Attachment's Sweet Poison. We usually associate the art of letting go with releasing negative things, worry, anger, sadness. But one of the heaviest and most difficult burdens to release is, paradoxically, our attachment to positive things. We cling to moments of happiness, feelings of pleasure, success, desperately trying to make them last forever. This eagerness to hold on to what is good creates a subtle anxiety, a constant fear of loss. We are unable to fully enjoy the beauty of the moment because we are too busy trying to prevent it from going away. This attachment to pleasure is a sweet poison that prevents us from finding a truly stable peace. The wisdom of non-attachment teaches us to love and appreciate life in a much deeper and freer way. It's not about becoming cold or not enjoying life's pleasures. Quite the contrary. It's about learning to savor each moment of joy with complete gratitude, precisely because we know it's impermanent. It's the difference between trying to capture a butterfly and holding it tight in a clenched fist, which would crush it, and simply appreciating its beauty as it rests on our open hand, letting it fly when the time comes. An open hand can receive the next butterfly. A closed hand can receive nothing. Imagine you find a flower of extraordinary beauty and fragrance. The impulse of attachment is to pluck it from the earth so you can possess it, so it's yours. You take it home, place it in a vase, and for a day or two you have its beauty all to yourself. But inevitably, separated from its roots, the flower wilts and dies. Non-attachment, the wisdom of letting go, is the art of appreciating the flower in its own garden. You visit it daily, you water it, smell its perfume, admire its colors. You love it fully, without the need to possess it. And because of that, the flower continues to live and give you its beauty for much longer. And when naturally its petals fall, you say goodbye with gratitude, not with the despair of loss. As you rest, allow this lesson of free love to be absorbed. The practice is to release with gratitude. Bring to mind a happy memory, a moment of great joy or peace that you experienced. Recreate that moment in your mind. Feel the sweetness, the warmth, the beauty of that experience. Allow yourself to savor it fully, without rushing. Now, instead of clinging to that memory for fear that it will fade, practice the act of letting it go with love. Imagine that this memory is a beautiful golden leaf. With a gentle exhale, visualize yourself placing that leaf in a calm stream and watching it float away. You are not losing it. You are releasing your attachment to it, trusting that the river of life will bring you other beautiful leaves in the future. Feel the peace that comes from loving without possessing. I appreciate the sweetness of each happy moment, without trying to imprison it. With an open hand, I receive, and with gratitude, I say goodbye. By releasing attachment to pleasure, I find a peace that cannot be lost. Breathing in this lesson. Night Lesson 14. The lesson of the shadow that dissolves in the light. One of the most paralyzing burdens we carry in our hearts is the burden of fear. Fear can have many faces: the fear of the future, the fear of failure, the fear of loneliness, the fear of illness, the fear of the unknown. At night, in the silence, these fears can grow and assume gigantic proportions, like monsters in a child's room. Fear is an energy of contraction. It shrinks our body, tightens our chest, and closes our mind. When we are under the dominion of fear, healing, wisdom, and rest become impossible. Our habitual reaction to fear is to fight it or to flee from it, but both strategies only strengthen it. The lesson of wisdom teaches us a radically different approach. Instead of fleeing or fighting, we turn to meet fear with the light of awareness. Fear is like a shadow. It seems dark, solid, and very real. But what is the nature of a shadow? It has no substance of its own. It is merely an area where light is blocked. Fear, similarly, has no substance of its own. It is merely an absence of clarity, an absence of awareness. It thrives in the darkness of our inattention and our catastrophic imagination. When we have the courage to direct the light of our mindful attention directly to the sensation of fear, it begins to lose its power. Imagine that fear is your own shadow. If you turn and run from it, what does it do? It chases you, and depending on the position of the sun, it can seem like a terrifying giant running after you. Running from the shadow is a losing race. But what happens if you stop, take a deep breath, and turn to face your shadow? You see that it is connected to you, that it has no power of its own, that it cannot hurt you. By looking at it directly, calmly, it loses all its menacing aspect. The habit of releasing fear is to stop running and learn to turn to meet our shadows with the light of presence. The practice to be absorbed tonight is to become friends with your fear. If you feel any energy of anxiety or fear in your body now, resist the urge to distract yourself. Instead, locate where that sensation is strongest. Is it a tightness in your stomach, a racing heart, a knot in your throat? Bring your attention to that place with the gentleness of a mother approaching a frightened child's crib. Not to make the fear go away, but to be with it. Breathe gently into that area. Imagine that your breath is bringing warm, compassionate light to this contracted place. Don't get lost in the story that the mind tells about the fear. Just stay with the pure, physical sensation. Embrace it with your awareness. Tell it, silently, I see you, fear. You are allowed to be here. I will stay with you. Observe how, by ceasing to struggle, by offering fear the light of your acceptance, the contraction begins to soften. The shadow, when illuminated, begins to dissolve. You are learning that you are bigger than your fear. You are the space that can contain fear, and that space is by nature peaceful. I do not flee from my fear. I meet it with the light of my awareness. By embracing my shadows with acceptance, I watch them dissolve. I am the safe space where even fear can find peace. Allowing this lesson to settle. Night Lesson 15. The lesson of the house that had nothing to lose. The most central burden the heart carries is the feeling that there is a vulnerable self at the center of our being, a self that needs to be constantly protected. It is this self that feels wounded by criticism, that fears rejection, that feels diminished by failure. Most of our emotional energy is spent building and maintaining defenses around this fragile citadel of the ego. We build walls of anger, moats of indifference, and towers of pride to protect this precious little self. But living in a fortress is living in a prison. It is a state of constant vigilance and fear, which prevents us from opening ourselves to life and to others. The lesson of wisdom that frees us from this burden is that of emptiness, or shunyata. This profound teaching reveals to us that when we look within, with a clear vision, we cannot find any solid and separate entity that corresponds to this self that we strive so hard to defend. What we find is an open space, a fluid awareness, in which thoughts and feelings arise and disappear. The perception that the center of our citadel is in fact an empty and open space is the ultimate liberation. For what can be hurt in empty space? What can be stolen from a house that has nothing inside? Imagine a man who owned a house full of invaluable treasures. He lived in a state of constant anxiety. He installed locks, window bars, alarms. He barely slept at night, startled by every noise, always afraid that thieves might break in and steal his possessions. His wealth was his torture. One day, he met a wise master who gave him strange advice. Give away all your treasures. After much hesitation, the man did so. He emptied his house completely. On the first night, in his now empty house, he prepared for the usual vigil, but then he realized there was nothing more to be protected. He left the windows and doors open, and for the first time in years, he slept the whole night in a deep and carefree peace. Letting go of attachment to ourself is like emptying this house. It doesn't mean that we become nothing, but that we are freed from the burden of protecting a fragile, constructed identity. We become like open space, invulnerable, not because we are hard, but because there is nothing solid to be attacked. The practice to be absorbed tonight is to feel the security of empty space. Feel the presence of your sense of self, the self that worries, the self that has a story. Now, with gentle curiosity, investigate. What is this self? Is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it a memory? Observe how it is not a solid thing, but a collection of transient processes. Now, with each exhale, release a little more of your identification with this collection. Let go of the need to protect yourself, to defend yourself. Visualize the doors and windows of your inner house opening. There is nothing to be stolen. You are safe in your own emptiness. Rest in this open, silent, and invulnerable space. My self is a house full of treasures that cause me anxiety. Tonight, I empty my house. By releasing attachment to my identity, I find the security and peace of vast emptiness. Carrying this lesson. Night lesson 16. The lesson of tearing up the paid bill. One of the stickiest burdens the heart carries from the past is that of guilt and regret. We lie down at night and the mind tortures us with the film of our mistakes. Why did I do that? I hurt that person. I'm a bad person. We sentence ourselves to a prison of self-deprecation, believing that by continually punishing ourselves, we are somehow paying for our mistakes. But this habit of self-flagellation does not fix the past. It only destroys our present and prevents us from becoming the better person we aspire to be. Guilt is a form of attachment, an attachment to our own imperfection. The lesson of wisdom teaches us to differentiate between healthy remorse and toxic guilt. Remorse is the clear and intelligent pain we feel when we recognize that we have caused harm. It is a useful emotion. It motivates us to learn from our mistakes and resolve to act more wisely in the future. Guilt, on the other hand, is the act of chewing over the mistake, identifying with it, and using it as a weapon to punish ourselves. Letting go of the burden of guilt is not ignoring our mistakes, but completing the learning process and then freeing ourselves to move on. Imagine that, through a mistake, you incurred a debt. Guilt is like looking at the debt bill every day, feeling crushed by it, but never doing anything to pay it. The wise path, taught in Buddhism, is a four-step process to pay the debt of our mistake in a healthy way. The first is to honestly acknowledge the mistake, without excuses. The second is to feel genuine remorse, connecting with the pain our action caused. The third is to make amends, if possible, by apologizing or repairing the damage. And the fourth, and most crucial, is to make a firm resolution, not to repeat that mistake. Once these 4 steps are taken, the debt is paid. What do we do, however? We pay the debt with our remorse and our resolution, but we continue to carry the paid bill in our pocket. Every night, we take it out, look at it, and feel bad again. The final lesson in letting go of guilt is the act of ceremoniously tearing up the bill that has already been paid. As you rest, allow this lesson of self-forgiveness to heal you. Bring to mind, gently, a mistake or a regret that has weighed on you. Not the biggest one, just one you can work with. Go through the 4 steps. First, fully acknowledge it. Yes, I did that. Second, allow yourself to feel the sting of healthy remorse. Third, if there is something to be repaired, make the intention to do so. Fourth, make a sincere resolution in your heart. I have learned from this. I will do my best to act more wisely. Now, visualize the bill of this mistake in your hand. Recognize that you have already paid it with your learning. And then, with a clear intention to free yourself, visualize yourself tearing that bill into 1,000 pieces. Watch the pieces scatter in the wind, disappearing forever. Feel the lightness in your heart. The debt is paid. You are free. I learned from my mistakes, but I refuse to live in the prison of guilt. With sincere remorse and the resolution to be better, I pay my debts to the past. Tonight, I tear up the paid bills and release the burden of regret, allowing this lesson to settle. Night lesson 17. The lesson of the smile that melts the armor. In our journey to release burdens, we can become very serious. Spiritual practice can become just another project, another task to be perfected. We focus on our wounds, our negative patterns, our efforts to be better, and we can, without realizing it, create an atmosphere of heaviness and solemnity around our practice. We carry the burden of becoming enlightened. This seriousness, though well-intentioned, is itself a form of tension, a subtle armor that prevents us from experiencing the ultimate quality of release, which is lightness, joy, and even good humor. The lesson of wisdom that balances the depth of practice is that of gentle joy and playfulness. Many of the greatest Zen masters were known not for their solemnity, but for their booming laughter, their sparkling eyes, their ability not to take themselves so seriously. They understood that true wisdom is not heavy, it is light as a feather. It is the ability to see the dreamlike nature of our own dramas and to smile at the absurdity of our attachments. Letting go of the burden of being a serious spiritual practitioner is often the last and most important act of letting go. Imagine that your heart, after all the battles and efforts, is wearing heavy armor, the armor of seriousness, effort, self-importance. The practice of a gentle inner smile is like the warm sun that, ray by ray, heats this metal armor. And what happens to metal when it is heated? It softens. It loses its rigidity. It becomes malleable. A gentle smile is not a denial of our pain, but an infusion of warmth and lightness that allows our defensive armor to finally melt, revealing the soft, vulnerable heart that lies beneath. As you lie down, let's practice melting this last armor. First, feel the quality of seriousness or effort that may be present in your mind or body. The furrowed brow, the tense jaw, the feeling that you need to relax. Just notice that energy. Now invite, without forcing, a very subtle smile to appear on your lips. Not a broad smile, but the slightest hint of a smile, like that of someone remembering a happy memory or seeing something beautiful. Feel how this small physical movement already begins to shift your energy. Now, let that feeling of the smile spread. Feel your eyes smiling behind your eyelids. Feel your cheeks smiling. Feel your forehead softening, as if it too were smiling. Then, let this inner smile descend like warm honey, melting any armor around your throat and chest. Feel your heart, perhaps tense and serious, beginning to smile. Feel the space and warmth this smile creates. Let it descend to your abdomen, unwinding the knot of anxiety. Allow your entire being to be filled with this vibration of lightness and serene joy. There's nothing to be proven, nothing to be achieved. There is only the permission to smile. Wisdom isn't heavy, it's light. Smiling is my deepest practice. With the gentleness of an inner smile, I melt the armor of seriousness and release the final burden. I rest in the joy of simply being. Night lesson 18. The lesson of the bamboo that grows in silence. We live in the age of instant gratification. We want quick results, immediate solutions, accelerated growth. And we carry this same haste into our inner lives. We begin a meditation practice or a path of self-discovery. And if we don't feel transformed in a week, we become frustrated, impatient, and ready to give up. The burden of haste, this demand that healing and wisdom happen on our schedule, is one of the greatest saboteurs of our own growth. Impatience is the poison that burns the roots of any seed we plant. The habit a monk cultivates to neutralize this poison is that of persevering patience. It's the wisdom of understanding that inner growth doesn't operate on the logic of an assembly line, but on the logic of nature. And nature has its own rhythm, often slow, silent, and invisible. It's the deep trust that if we continue to create the right conditions, watering the soil with our daily practice, growth is happening, even if we can't see the results on the surface. Letting go of the burden of haste is exchanging the anxiety of the result for trust in the process. Consider the lesson of the Chinese bamboo. When a farmer plants the seed of this bamboo, he waters, and fertilizes it diligently. In the first year, nothing happens. No plant sprouts from the earth. He continues to tend the soil in the second year, and nothing. In the third year, the same thing. In the fourth year, still no sign of life. An impatient farmer would have already given up, declaring the seed infertile. But the wise farmer continues to water with faith and patience. Then, in the fifth year, something miraculous happens. In a period of just 6 weeks, the bamboo shoot bursts from the earth and grows to a height of almost 30 meters. Did it grow that much in such a short time? No. For 4 long years, while nothing was visible on the surface, it was building an incredibly strong and complex root system, the foundation that would allow its spectacular growth. Our practice of letting go is like cultivating this bamboo. Many of the most important changes are happening underground in our minds. We are building the roots of patience, compassion, non-reactivity. It may seem that nothing is changing on the surface of our daily lives, but we are building the foundation for a peace and wisdom that, when they finally sprout, will be strong and unshakable. As you rest, allow the patience of the bamboo farmer to be absorbed into your being. Release the need for immediate results. Release the burden of self-criticism for not progressing fast enough. The practice to be absorbed is that of trusting the invisible process.
Visualize yourself as this wise farmer. See the fertile soil of your mind, and with a gentle intention, visualize yourself watering this soil with the act of simply listening to these words. With each calm breath, don't worry about the shoots. Just tend the soil. Trust that, in the right time, in nature's time, the roots you are cultivating now will bear the fruit of a profound peace. Wisdom doesn't grow with haste, but with persistence. I release the burden of impatience and trust.
The silent process of my growth. Like the bamboo, I build my roots in quietude, knowing that in its own time, I will flourish. Breathing in this lesson. Night lesson 19. The lesson of dancing with the waves of change. One of the heaviest burdens we carry is our resistance to change. We cling to what is familiar, to what is known, even if it's uncomfortable. We build routines, identities, and relationships, and we wish them to remain static, like photographs in an album. When life, in its natural and inevitable flow, presents us with change, be it a loss, a new challenge, or simply the aging of our bodies, we resist, we contract, we struggle. And it is this resistance, not the change itself, that causes our suffering. It's like trying to hold a river with your hands, an exhausting and painful effort. The habit a monk cultivates to live in peace is the graceful acceptance of impermanence, anicca. This is not a passive acceptance, but a wise dance with reality. It is the recognition that the only constant in life is change. Everything flows. Trying to hold on to what is impermanent is the definition of suffering. Releasing the burden of resistance to change is what allows us to find freedom and joy, not in spite of change, but because of it. It's the ability to become fluid, like life itself. Imagine a surfer facing the ocean. A foolish surfer would try to fight the waves. He would get irritated with them for being too big or too small. He would try, in vain, to stop them with his body. He would be constantly knocked down, swallow salt water, and end the day exhausted and frustrated. The wise surfer, however, doesn't fight the ocean. He studies the waves. He feels their rhythm. He respects their power. He doesn't control the waves, but he learns to dance with them. He aligns himself with the energy of the wave, using its power to glide across its surface with grace, skill, and joy. He understands that the wave that lifts him will be the same one that gently carries him back to the shore. He flows with the change. We can learn to be this wise surfer in the waves of our lives. Events, feelings, circumstances are the waves. Our rigidity, our attachment to how things should be, is what causes us to fall. The practice of letting go is to learn to flex our bodies and minds so that we can surf the waves of life instead of being crushed by them. Your breath is your surfboard. It is your constant teacher of impermanence. The practice to be absorbed tonight is that of dancing with the breath. Bring your attention to the flow of air. Feel the wave of inhalation that arises, reaches its peak, and inevitably transforms into the wave of exhalation. You cannot hold the inhalation forever. To live, You need to release it to make room for the exhalation. And you need to release the exhalation to make room for the next inhalation. Your life depends on this constant flow of letting go. Rest in this rhythm. Feel it in your body. With each exhalation, practice the act of letting go. Let go of the day that has passed. Let go of the tension. Let go of the resistance to change. With each inhalation, practice the act of receiving the new moment with openness. Let your breath teach you the art of surfing. I don't fight the waves of life. I learn to dance with them. I release the burden of resistance to change. In the fluidity of acceptance, I find my freedom, my grace, and my peace. Allowing this lesson to settle. Night Lesson 20. The lesson of the body made of light and space. Lying in the darkness, we often experience our body as a burden. It can feel heavy, dense, full of aches and tensions. We identify with this solidity, with this flesh and bone, and when the body aches or is sick, we feel that we are sick, that we are the problem. This perception of the body as a solid and problematic object can make us feel trapped, confined within a form that causes us suffering. It's difficult to let go of the mind when we feel we are chained to a heavy and uncomfortable body. The lesson of wisdom invites us to a deeper exploration of the nature of our body, an exploration that frees us from the tyranny of solidity. Both modern physics and contemplative traditions tell us the same thing. What we perceive as solid matter is, in fact, a vast field of energy and space. Your body is not so much a thing as an event. It's a vibrant cloud of atoms and particles, dancing in an immense empty space. Releasing the burden of the body doesn't mean abandoning it, but releasing our rigid and limited idea about it. Imagine that your body is a dry, compact sponge. This is our habitual perception, contracted by tension. Now imagine that you immerse this sponge in an ocean of warm, peaceful water. The water begins to penetrate the sponge, filling all its small spaces. The sponge expands, becomes soft, flexible, and much lighter. It ceases to be a hard, separate object and becomes one with the water around it. The practice of releasing the body is like this immersion. We allow spacious awareness to permeate our physical form, dissolving its apparent solidity and revealing its true nature, which is vibrant and luminous. Let's dive into this experience of lightness now. Feel, for a moment, the weight and density of your body on the bed. Now, begin to visualize each cell of your body as a small, sparkling point of light, like a tiny star. And more importantly, visualize the vast space that exists between each of these points of light. Start with your feet. See them not as blocks of flesh, but as a constellation of light and space. Allow this perception to slowly rise through your body. Your legs become luminous galaxies. Your torso, a universe of stars gently pulsating with your breath. Your arms and hands, rivers of light. Your head, a bright sphere of consciousness. Continue to focus more on the space than on the points of light. Feel how, with this shift in focus, the sensation of weight and density begins to disappear. Your body becomes light, ethereal, like a cloud of fireflies on a summer night. There are no more rigid edges, no more solid tensions. There's only an open and vibrant field of peaceful energy. Rest as this cloud of light. Float in this space. The burden of the body has been released. My body is not a solid object, but a field of energy and space. By releasing my identification with its density, I free it from tension. I rest as a constellation of light, free, and at peace, carrying this lesson. Night Lesson 21. The lesson of the traveler without luggage. One of the heaviest burdens we carry is our own history. We cling to the narrative of who we are, a story woven from our memories, our successes, our failures, and especially our wounds. I am the person who went through that. I am defined by this trauma. This is my story. This is me. We carry this story with us everywhere, like a traveler carrying a heavy suitcase full of stones. This suitcase of our past identity prevents us from walking lightly, from being free to experience the freshness of the present moment. We live in the today, but we look at the world through the dusty lenses of yesterday. The lesson of wisdom that frees us from this burden is to learn to honor our history without being prisoners of it. It is the recognition that, although our past experiences have shaped us, They do not define the totality of who we are. We are far vaster than our biography. Releasing the burden of personal history is the act of putting the suitcase down so that we can feel the freedom of walking with empty hands and an open heart. Imagine a pilgrim who, at the beginning of his long journey, is instructed to carry a small stone for every regret and every grievance he possesses. He begins his journey with a heavy backpack, which leaves him exhausted with every step. On his first night, he arrives at an inn and meets a wise old woman. She tells him, "Every night, before going to sleep, you must go to the river, take a single stone from your backpack, tell its story to the flowing water, and then release it." The pilgrim follows the advice. On the first night, he tells the story of a grievance and releases the stone. He feels a little lighter. He continues his journey and repeats the ritual every night. With each stone he releases, his back is relieved. His steps become more joyful, and he begins to notice the beauty of the path. At the end of his pilgrimage, his backpack is empty. He has become a traveler without luggage, a free being. Our nightly practice of letting go is like this ritual by the river. It is our opportunity to empty the backpack we carry throughout the day. As you relax, visualize the heavy backpack of your personal history beside you. Acknowledge its weight. Thank this history for all the lessons of strength and resilience it has taught you. Now visualize yourself opening the backpack and taking out a stone, the memory of a grievance, a regret. Hold it in your mind, and then, with a long, gentle exhalation, release it. Let it go. There's no need to tell the story. Just the intention to let go is enough. Feel the backpack becoming a little lighter. Do this with another stone, and another. Continue until you feel the backpack is empty. You no longer need to carry the weight of the past into your night's rest. My history does not define me. I honor my past, but I am not its prisoner. Tonight, I release yesterday's baggage. I choose to travel light, with empty hands and an open heart for the peace of the present, allowing this lesson to settle. Night Lesson 22. The lesson of the mirror that becomes the stage. In our practice of meditation and self-observation, we learn to step back and become the witness, or the observer, of our experience. Instead of being the thought, we become the one who observes the thought. This is a crucial step towards freedom, as it creates a space between us and our mental content. However, a final subtle burden may arise. We may cling to the identity of being the observer. A duality still exists, a separation, the I here, observing, and the experience there, being observed. This sense of being a separate subject looking at an object still maintains a thin layer of tension and effort. The final and deepest lesson of letting go is to release the observer itself. It's the step from observation to immersion. It's the collapse of the duality between subject and object. It's the recognition that there is no separate you that hears a sound. There is only the hearing happening. There is no separate you that feels the breath. There is only the breathing happening. This is the transition to non-dual awareness, a state of profound unity and effortless relaxation, for the I that strives to observe has finally rested. Imagine your consciousness is like a mirror, and your experience, thoughts, sounds, sensations, is the landscape it reflects. The first step of wisdom is to stop identifying with the reflections and remember that you are the mirror, clear and undisturbed. This is the habit of the observer. The final lesson is to take the next step, to realize that the mirror and the landscape are not, ultimately, two separate things. They arise together as a single unified field of experience. There is no mirror and landscape. There is only the reflecting. The mirror becomes the landscape. Consciousness becomes one with its own experience. As you drift on the edge of sleep, this is a very natural state to explore. The practice to be absorbed is that of dissolving the boundary. Bring your attention to the sensation of your breath. First, observe it. Feel the you that is observing the sensation of the air moving in and out. Now gently release the observer. Instead of observing the breath, be the breath. Let the sensation of the flow be the totality of your experience for a moment. There is no longer an I and breath. There is only the flow. Now do the same with sound. Listen to the sounds in your room. First, as a listener. Now release the listener. Allow your consciousness to merge with the sound itself. There is no longer an I listening to a sound. There is only the hearing. the sonic vibration. Continue to relax into this experience of merging. Release the I that feels the body, and just be the feeling. Release the I that is resting, and just be the resting itself. This is the final letting go, the surrender of the I to the ocean of being. I release the observer and become the observation itself. There are no longer two, there is only one. By dissolving into the experience of now, I release the final burden and find the peace of unity. Night Lesson 23, the lesson of the hand that opens to receive. One of the most paradoxical burdens we carry is our struggle for happiness. We chase it, plan for it, strive to achieve it, as if it were a prize to be won. This very pursuit, this energy of wanting and trying, creates a subtle tension that is the exact opposite of happiness. Happiness, in its essence, is a state of relaxation, openness, and non-striving, and it is shy. The more we run towards it, the more it retreats, frightened by our eagerness. Letting go of the burden of the pursuit of happiness is, often, the most direct path to finding it. This teaching invites us to understand the difference between intention and attachment. To have the intention to be happy is like planting a seed in a garden. Attachment is like digging up the earth every day to see if the seed has already sprouted. The first act is wise and necessary. The second is destructive and anxious. The wisdom of letting go, in this context, is to, after having planted the seed with our intention and our practice, trust the process. It is the act of stopping digging and instead sitting quietly in the garden, enjoying the sun and the breeze, allowing the growth to happen in its own time, naturally. Imagine a person trying to catch the moon reflected on the surface of a lake. They agitate the water with their hands, trying to grasp the shimmering reflection. But the more they agitate, the more the reflection distorts and breaks into 1,000 pieces. They never manage to catch it. Exhausted and frustrated, they finally give up. They stop struggling, relax, and sit quietly on the bank. And what happens? The lake water, on its own, calms down, and there, on its perfectly still surface, the full moon shines in all its beauty. It didn't need to be captured. It only needed to be allowed. Happiness is like the reflection of the moon. Our mental agitation distorts it. The stillness of letting go allows it to reveal itself in its perfection. The practice to be absorbed tonight is that of releasing the pursuit itself. Acknowledge, with compassion, your deep desire to be happy and to find peace. Honor that desire, and then visualize that this desire is a small seed that you hold in your hand. With a loving intention, plant this seed in the fertile soil of your heart, and then open your hand. Relax it completely. Your work as a sower is done. Now, trust. Release the burden of having to make happiness happen. Instead, simply rest. Feel the sensation of your body. Listen to the sounds. Be present. This relaxed, agendaless presence is the sun and rain your seed needs to germinate. I release the burden of having to find happiness. I plant the seed of peace with my intention, and then I open my hand. By ceasing to chase the moon in the lake, I allow its beauty to reveal itself in my own stillness. Breathing into this lesson, Night Lesson 24, the lesson of surrendering the keys to the kingdom. We live with the illusion that we are in control. We believe that our thinking self, our ego, is the king or queen of our inner kingdom, making all the decisions, managing all the crises. This sense of total responsibility is a crushing burden. The I stays up all night trying to solve the kingdom's problems, worried about the threats at the borders, exhausted by the weight of the crown. But wisdom teaches us that this I is not the true monarch. It is more like a noisy and anxious minister who believes they are ruling, while true wisdom, true power, resides in a much deeper and quieter intelligence. This teaching invites us to a wise surrender. It is the act of abdicating the throne of the ego and handing over the keys to the kingdom, to this higher intelligence. We can call it our intuition, our Buddha nature, the flow of life, or simply the wisdom of the body. It is the recognition that there is a force within us that knows how to heal, that knows how to rest, that knows how to find balance, in a way far more effective than our rational mind ever could. Letting go of the burden of being the king is what allows us, finally, to rest as a peaceful, ordinary citizen in our own kingdom. Imagine a conductor who believes they need, with their own hands, to make each instrument in the orchestra play. They run from one side of the stage to the other, trying to play the violin, then the flute, then the drum. The result is a chaos of dissonant sounds, and the conductor ends the night in a collapse of exhaustion. The wise conductor, however, understands that their role is not to play the instruments. Their role is to create the space, give the cue, and then trust the ability of each musician. They raise their baton, give a gentle signal, and then they surrender. They become a channel through which the music flows. The harmony does not come from their control, but from their trust and their surrender. Our thinking mind is like the conductor who tries to play all the instruments. Our deeper wisdom is the orchestra. The habit of letting go is to lower the baton and allow the music of healing and rest to play itself. The practice to be absorbed tonight is that of this royal abdication. Feel the presence of your controlling self, the anxious minister in your mind. Thank it for its tireless efforts to keep you safe. Now, with serene authority, visualize yourself removing the heavy crown from the head of this self and place it in your heart, at the center of a deeper wisdom. Hand over the keys to the kingdom and say silently, I trust you. I no longer need to control everything. I surrender to your wisdom. Feel the profound relief that comes with this surrender. You no longer need to be in command. You can simply be. You can simply rest, knowing that the kingdom is in good hands, perhaps for the first time. I am not the anxious king. I am the entire kingdom. Tonight I release the burden of control. I hand over the keys to my deeper wisdom and allow myself to rest, trusting that harmony will arise on its own, allowing this lesson to settle. Night Lesson 25. The Lesson of the Silent Morning Offering. We have almost reached the end of our journey of release. We have learned to let go of the burdens of the mind, the heart, and identity itself. We have bathed in the peace that arises when the grip relaxes. And the final lesson, the act that seals our practice and projects it into the future, is to transform our own sleep into an act of letting go, an offering. The night need not be just a time of passive rest. It can become our deepest practice of surrender. This teaching invites us to infuse our sleep with a sacred intention. It is the practice of consciously offering all our agitation, all our worries, all our pain to the vastness of the night, trusting that it has the power to transform it. It is an act of humility and faith, the recognition that we cannot solve all our problems with our small minds, and that sometimes the wisest thing to do is to surrender everything to a higher power. Imagine that the night is a vast, deep ocean of silent consciousness. And imagine that your worries, your fears, your pains are heavy stones that you carry in a sack. You spent the whole day carrying this sack. Now you are standing at the edge of this dark, peaceful ocean. You could continue to hold the sack, afraid of losing it. Or you can perform the final act of release. You can open the sack and, one by one, offer each stone to the ocean. You release a stone of worry. It enters the water with a small sound and disappears into the depths. You release a stone of resentment. It too disappears. With each stone you release, your sack becomes lighter. The ocean is not disturbed. It welcomes everything, dissolves everything, transforms everything. Sleep is this ocean. The final letting go habit is to consciously transform our falling asleep into this ritual of offering. The practice to be absorbed now is to prepare your offering. Gather in your mind, without judgment, all the burdens that may still remain. The anxiety, the physical pain, the sadness, the confusion. See them all together as a bundle or a dark cloud. Now, with a clear and sincere intention, visualize yourself offering this bundle to the great, compassionate darkness of the night. You can say silently, "Great night, great silence, I offer you all that weighs me down. I offer you my confusion, so that it may be transformed into clarity. I offer you my pain, so that it may be transformed into compassion. I offer you my tiredness, so that it may be transformed into vitality." Feel the act of releasing this final bundle. Feel your hands emptying. Feel your heart lightening. There is nothing more you need to carry. You have surrendered everything. Now you are completely empty, completely open, and completely ready to receive the gift that the night offers you in return. the gift of peace, healing, and renewal. I do not fight against the darkness. I transform it into my ally. Tonight I offer all my burdens to the great ocean of sleep. Empty of all weight, I open myself to receive the peace and healing that the night brings me, carrying this lesson. Night Lesson 26. The lesson of waking with open hands, the journey of letting go, does not end when we fall asleep. It finds its true expression in the moment we awaken. The untrained mind wakes up with a clenched fist. It immediately grasps the to-do list, the identity of its problems, the weight of its responsibilities. Before we even get out of bed, we are already carrying the world on our backs. The burden we so carefully released the night before is picked up again in the first second of consciousness. This teaching invites us to extend the practice of letting go to the very act of waking. It is the habit of beginning the day not with an act of grasping, but with an act of opening. It is the wisdom of meeting the new day with empty hands and an open heart, instead of with the armor of our old worries. How we begin the day defines the quality of our entire day. Beginning with open hands is an invitation for the day to unfold with more grace, with less resistance, and with more space for wisdom and joy. Imagine, too, gardeners at dawn. The first wakes up and immediately rushes to their garden, already with a list of worries. I need to pull out those weeds. I need to worry about the pest I saw yesterday. I need to make sure everything grows exactly as I planned. They begin the day in a state of struggle and control. The second gardener, the wise one, wakes up and before doing anything, they go to their garden and simply stand quietly for a moment. They feel the fresh morning air. They observe the sunlight touching the leaves. They listen to the birds singing. They don't grasp the problems. They first connect with the beauty and peace of the moment. They begin the day from a place of gratitude and openness. And from that state, their work in the garden becomes not a struggle, but a dance. The practice to be absorbed tonight is to plant the seed for a different awakening. It is to allow the wisdom of letting go to become your default setting, your first nature upon waking. As you unwind, form a gentle, clear intention for your awakening. Visualize yourself tomorrow morning, the very first moment consciousness returns. See yourself in your mind's eye, resisting the urge to immediately grasp at thoughts, schedules, your phone. Instead, picture yourself taking a single, deep breath with your mind's hands completely open. Feel the sensation of needing to hold on to nothing. Feel the freedom of simply being for a minute or two before becoming someone with responsibilities. Feel the peace of meeting the new day with a spacious heart, ready to receive whatever it brings, without the burden of the previous day. Today is done. Tomorrow hasn't begun. I rest in this in-between space. I plant the intention to awaken with open hands, a light heart, and a peaceful mind. May the act of letting go be the first and last action of each day, allowing this lesson to settle. Nightly Lesson 27. The lesson of the raindrop that rejoices in becoming the ocean. We arrive at the final and deepest lesson of letting go. We've learned to release the burdens of the mind, the heart, the story. And what remains when all this is let go? What is this peace, this stillness? The last burden to be released is the very idea that there is a separate self that has found peace. As long as there is a self that is at peace, there is still a subtle duality, a separation. The final liberation is the act of letting go of even the self that has liberated itself. This teaching points to the truth of non-duality. It is the recognition that the peace we seek is not something we, as separate individuals, can possess. Peace is our very nature. When the illusion of separation dissolves, it's like a raindrop that, after a long journey through the skies and rivers, finally reaches the ocean. What happens to the drop? It doesn't disappear. It becomes the ocean. It doesn't possess the vastness. It is the vastness. It doesn't lose its essence. It realizes it in its totality. Our sense of separate self is like that raindrop. Throughout our lives, we've felt small, vulnerable, and separate from the great ocean of existence. The journey of letting go has been the flow of the river leading us back home. And the final act of letting go is this plunge, this merging. It's not annihilation, but infinite expansion. The peace we find isn't my peace. It's simply peace. The consciousness that is here, now, isn't my consciousness. It is universal consciousness, the same that shines in every being. As you rest on the threshold of sleep, allow yourself this final plunge. The practice is to dissolve all boundaries. Feel the peace in your body. Now feel that same peace extending beyond your skin, filling your room. There is no longer a peaceful body in a quiet room. There is only a unified field of peace. Feel your breath. Now feel the breath of the world, the movement of the tides, the whisper of the wind. Your breath and the breath of the universe are not two things. Release the last point of reference of being a someone lying in a bed. Simply be the very sensation of peace. Be the stillness. Be the consciousness. Let the drop rejoice in becoming the ocean. There is nothing more to let go of, for there is no one left to hold on. There is only this moment, vast, silent, and completely free. This is the ultimate rest. This is your true home. I am not the drop. I am the ocean. I release the last boundary of self and rest in the vast peace of being. There is nothing more to let go of. I am home. Nightly Lesson 28. The Lesson of the Treasure, hidden in the cloak. One of the subtlest and most persistent burdens on our journey is the very identity of being a seeker. We strive so hard to find peace, to attain enlightenment, to let go. This seeking, though noble, can become yet another burden, another story we tell ourselves. The story of the self that hasn't arrived yet, the self that needs to practice more, the self that is incomplete. We believe peace is a treasure hidden in a distant land, and that we need to travel far and strive immensely to find it. This belief keeps us in a state of longing and striving that, ironically, distances us from the peace that is already here. The final lesson on the act of letting go is to let go of the seeking itself. Buddhist wisdom tells us a touching parable to illustrate this truth. There was a very poor man who had an immensely rich friend. One day, the friend visited him, and seeing the misery in which the man lived, decided to give him a gift that would change his life. While the poor man slept, exhausted, the friend sewed a priceless jewel into the lining of his old worn cloak. In the morning, the friend left without saying anything. The poor man awoke and continued his life of hardship, wandering the world in search of sustenance, completely unaware of the treasure he carried with him every step of the way. Years later, he met his friend again, who, shocked to see him still poor, revealed the secret. The man, incredulous, ripped open the lining of his cloak and found the jewel, realizing that he had searched the whole world for a wealth that had always been with him. We are like this man. The peace, the wisdom, the freedom we so desperately seek in the outside world, in techniques and future states, is the jewel, already sewn into the fabric of our own being. It is our own consciousness, our own Buddha nature. The practices and lessons don't give us the treasure. They are like the wise friend who points us to look at our own cloak. They quiet the frantically searching mind enough for us to feel what has always been here. The practice to be absorbed tonight is to stop the seeking. Let go of the burden of being a seeker. Let go of the idea that you need to go somewhere or achieve some state. Everything you have ever sought is already present, here and now, in the silent consciousness that is aware of these words. The treasure is not at the destination. It is in the very ground where you stand. Relax completely. Abandon all effort. Stop trying to let go. Stop trying to find peace. Just rest. Feel the priceless richness of your own presence, your own consciousness. It is the treasure. It has always been here. There is nothing more to be done. There is nothing more to be found. Simply rest in your own vast richness. The peace I seek is not in a distant place. It is sewn into my own being. I stop searching. I release the burden of being a seeker. By resting in the recognition of the treasure that I already am, I find peace. Breathing in this lesson, Nightly Lesson 29, the lesson of allowing silence. One of the last burdens the mind tries to carry, even in a state of deep relaxation, is the burden of having to be silent. We lie down, and the mind may still produce thoughts, memories, images, and our habit is to see this as a failure. I should have a blank mind. I can't stop thinking. And then we begin a subtle war against our own thoughts, trying to force them to disappear. This effort to create silence is, in itself, the source of much noise and tension. This teaching reveals a liberating truth about silence. True silence is not something we create. It is something we discover. It is not the absence of thoughts, but the space of consciousness in which thoughts are allowed to arise and disappear. The fundamental nature of the mind is not thought. It is silent consciousness. Thoughts are merely the activity, like waves on the surface of the ocean. The ocean, in its depth, is always silent. Letting go of the burden of having to silence the mind is what allows us to discover the silence that already exists beneath all the noise. Imagine a talented musician in a large, silent cathedral. He plays a complex and noisy melody on his instrument. If he wants to experience the majestic silence of the cathedral, what does he need to do? He doesn't need to break his instrument or fight against the notes. He needs, simply, to stop playing. The moment he stops the effort, the silence that was already there reveals itself. Our thinking mind is like this instrument. The habit of letting go, in this context, is to gently stop playing the thoughts. It is to stop engaging with them, feeding them, struggling with them. The practice to be absorbed tonight is to become a listener of silence. Become aware of the stream of thoughts that may be passing through your mind. Don't judge them. Don't follow them. Now, instead of focusing on the thoughts, shift your attention to the spaces between them, to the small pauses, to the moments of stillness. Listen to the background silence, the silence of the cathedral of your own mind, in which the sounds of thoughts are happening. Rest your attention on this background silence. Let it be your anchor. Allow the thoughts to come and go, like distant echoes that do not disturb the vastness of the cathedral. You don't need to get rid of thoughts to find peace. You just need to remember that you are the silence, not the noise. Every moment you choose to rest in the silence that underlies, you are letting go of the burden of having to control your mind. And paradoxically, by ceasing to struggle, the mind, by itself, becomes increasingly silent. Silence is not something I create. It is my nature which I discover. I stop fighting against my thoughts and rest in the silence that already exists behind them. By allowing the noise, I find peace. Allowing this lesson to settle. Nightly lesson 30. The lesson of gratitude that seals the release. We have reached the end of our journey of letting go. We have released the burdens of the mind, the bonds of the heart, and even the idea of a separate self. And what remains when all this is let go? What is the natural state of a mind that is no longer carrying weight? The final lesson is that the state of release is not a cold emptiness or indifference, but a heart overflowing with a simple and profound gratitude. Gratitude is the natural fragrance of a peaceful mind. The final burden to be released, therefore, is that of complaint, the feeling that something is missing. As long as there is within us the smallest seed of dissatisfaction, that life should be different from what it is, we are still carrying a weight. Gratitude is the universal solvent for this last vestige of suffering. It is the act of shifting focus from what is missing to the radical appreciation of what is present. It is not merely a feeling, it is a perspective, a wise way of seeing the world. Imagine a man who, after a long and dangerous journey, finally reaches a simple and safe cabin atop a mountain. He has a roof over his head, water to drink, and a bed to rest on. He could sit and complain that the cabin is not a palace, that the water is not fine wine, that the bed is not made of feathers. Or he could sit and feel a wave of immense gratitude for the safety, the simplicity, the rest. His happiness does not depend on the conditions, but on his perspective. Gratitude is the wisdom of seeing the cabin as a palace. Tonight, after the long journey of letting go, you have arrived at your cabin, your breathing body, your safe place to lie down, your consciousness that is awake to this moment. The final practice is to seal your release with this feeling of gratitude. It is the recognition of the simple miracle of being alive and conscious, here and now. The practice to be absorbed is to breathe gratitude. It's not gratitude for specific items, but gratitude for the very fact of existence. Feel the air entering your lungs, and think, gently, thank you. Feel the warmth of your body under the covers, and think, thank you. Feel the sensation of your body's weight surrendering to the bed. Thank you. Feel the quiet around you. Thank you. Feel the very consciousness that is experiencing all of this. Thank you. Let each breath be a pulse of gratitude. There is nothing to be fixed. There is nothing missing. This moment exactly as it is complete. This moment is enough. This moment is a gift. Let this feeling of gratitude be the last lesson, the last sensation, the last thought that accompanies you as you drift off to sleep. Falling asleep in a state of gratitude is the deepest way of letting go. For a grateful heart is a heart that does not complain, does not yearn, and does not resist. It is a heart that is finally at peace. When all burdens are released, what remains is gratitude. I release the last complaint and open my heart to the miracle of now. In a state of simple appreciation, I surrender to rest, complete and at peace. And so, our nightly journey into the art of letting go comes to its gentle end. We began by releasing the burdens of the mind, the imaginary stones of the future, and the chains of the past. We deepened, releasing the burdens of the heart, letting go of the burning embers of resentment and allowing the rain of sadness to cleanse our being. And finally, we touched upon the deepest release, by letting go of the very idea of a heavy, separate self, dissolving into the ocean of our true nature. The voice that guided you through these 30 lessons now falls silent, for the wisdom of letting go is no longer in words, but in your own breath, in your own heart. The lightness you may feel now is not something that was given to you. It is your essence, rediscovered by removing the weights that covered it. Remember that this ability to let go is like a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger and more natural it becomes. May your sleep be the final expression of all that we have learned, a total surrender, a deep trust, a peaceful yielding. May you let go of the day that has passed and immerse yourself in a rest that restores not only your body, but liberates your soul. And may you awaken tomorrow feeling lighter, freer, and more prepared to meet the new day with open hands. If this journey of release has brought peace to your heart, I invite you to join us in intention, writing in the comments the phrase, "I choose to let go," so that this energy of freedom may spread. To help more people find this refuge, a simple like on the video helps these lessons reach those who need them most. And to continue receiving these weekly journeys to a freer mind, these pauses of serenity in your life, simply subscribe to the channel. By activating the bell, you will be reminded whenever a new path to peace is ready for you. Good night. Let go of everything. Sleep in peace.